book to movie. These adaptations are everywhere. Heck, some of the movies you watch, you don't even know that there's a book. I mean, just look how many of these movies there are. Think of a random movie. Let's say, How to Train Your Dragon. Now, some people may say, hey, Bonnibert, how can How to Train Your Dragon be based off of a book? And, well, it is. Think of any movie you've watched, and there's probably a book version of it. Now, I'm not saying this applies to all movies, because it doesn't. Some of these book-to-movie adaptations are done well, and others not as much. There is one series that I think does this better than anything else. And that, of course, is Harry Potter. I've talked about it before on this channel, but not as much as Marvel or Star Wars. And I ran a poll, and people said that they wanted to see more videos on Harry Potter, so here you guys go. This is sort of like a video essay, but not really. So, this is why Harry Potter is one of the best book-to-film adaptations of all time. Now, let's start off with the criteria that I came up with for this video. Number 1 is, it must fit the descriptions that are used in the book. This part of the criteria could be used for setting, parts of the world, and just characters in general. If the thing looks like how I pictured it, I think it's a good book-to-movie adaptation. The second piece is, the movie's gotta keep the plot of the book without changing it too much. I don't like it when movies just add in weird things that the book didn't have. Cough, cough, the Hobbit movie. Okay, that was a joke. The Hobbit movie's pretty good. Now, good book-to-movie adaptations don't do this. I'll talk more about this in a later segment. And the third and final part is, it must fit the mood of the book. Now, this one's pretty straightforward. I don't really have to elaborate, so let's just get into the segment of how Harry Potter does all of these things. Now, let's start with criteria number 1. Actually looking like how I pictured it in the book. A lot of these locations in the movie come from straight from my mind, and straight from the page, too. Diagon Alley looks amazing, and it's basically how I pictured it when I first read the first Harry Potter book. Hogwarts is another example of this. Sort of like Diagon Alley, this feels like it's straight from the pages. And I'm glad it looks this good because it's the main setting of the 8 movies. If it didn't look like how it was described, I don't think I would like the movies that much. And also, Hogsmeade Village is amazing in the movies. You already know it's got all the shops, and basically all the stuff that was included in the book. Another thing these movies do well are the characters, obviously. A lot of them fit their description of how they're described in the book, like Harry Potter himself. I mean, sure, he doesn't have green eyes at all. But actually, the green contacts that they used, Daniel Radcliffe was allergic to them, so they couldn't really use it. So they kind of had to use his blue eyes. Which is okay, because they got his character down to a T. I mean, the glasses are perfect. He's got the jet black hair, and obviously the lightning scar. And the movie just did a great job with this. It's not just the characters' designs that are brought from the page, but it's also the personalities. Like Dobby, who just so happens to be my favorite character, is exactly like how he was in the book. If only the movies just had more of him. And that's foreshadowing, because I'm definitely going to touch upon that in a later segment. That's one of my only problems with this, but let's just move on to another character. Dolores Umbridge. Probably the most evil character in Harry Potter. And dang, I'm telling you, they did bring her right from the pages. All the way from the pink and the cats on the plates in her office, to her attitude and just the way she looks is straight from the pages, and it's amazing. Okay, I think I've spent a little too long talking about the descriptions and all that, so let's move on to the second segment and the second piece of criteria. Now, this is the piece of criteria that I feel like these movies do the worst in, but they still do pretty good. Let's get the bad stuff out of the way first. Let's talk about Dobby. Now, Dobby is in books 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. But he's only in movie 2 and 7. He doesn't get the screen time he deserves, and they just did him dirty with the movie. Instead, they replaced most of his scenes with Neville. I can see why they do this, because Neville becomes a pretty important character in the later books. But come on, man, just give Dobby some time to shine. The first time we see him is in the second book where he's introduced, and the last time is in the 7th movie where he dies. Now, the two movies that I feel like they did the worst on were The Half-Blood Prince and The Goblet of Fire. Now, they don't change the plot in any way, shape, or form. They just add unnecessary stuff that the book didn't really have. And in some cases, The Goblet of Fire just took away some stuff. I mean, sure, the Half-Blood Prince book did have romance, but not as much as the movie. And I could go on a rant of Goblet of Fire for hours, but I'll spare you. Now, the rest of the movies don't really change the plot in any other way. I mean, they do have a lot more snatcher scenes in the Deathly Hallows Part 1, but that doesn't really matter. So, I guess we can move on to the third and final piece of criteria. These movies match the tone and mood of the books perfectly. And one way that it does this is the fantastic acting and the amazing score by John Williams. In the first movie, the score is used to convey wonder and magic, because Harry's learning this stuff for the first time. And the score just fits this world perfectly. In the Deathly Hallows, the music is used to convey anger, sadness, grief, because a lot of people are dying in this movie. The music also gives you a lot of suspense, because, well, if you were following the movies, it was building up for like 10 years. So, as you can imagine, it was building a lot of suspense if you hadn't read the books yet. But I'm really only guessing that because I wasn't really alive at that time that the first half of the movies were coming out. So, I don't really know, but if you're that old, tell me in the comments. And if you're a big Harry Potter fan, of course. And I feel like that's it. I had a lot of fun making this video because Harry Potter's not something I usually talk about. So, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. And if you're not yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment telling me what you want to see next, because I want to know what my audience wants to see. Let's reach 1,000 by the end of the year, and that's a cut.